Credit card and electronic fund transfer transactions can be made through Denari in a variety of ways. For example, donors can donate by credit card or EFT through Denari's online community web portal. Credit card and EFT transactions can be made as part of ongoing donations using donor pledges, and credit card transactions can be made through gift records as one-time donations. Each type of transaction is handled in its own way and is covered in other videos and in the help documents. You will find the details of ongoing pledge transactions in the videos on pledges, the one-time credit card transactions in the gift videos, and the online community information in those videos. So we won't go over those details here. In this video, we will discuss the general overview of how credit card and EFT transactions work and the process for managing them through gift batching. It is important to understand that Denari does not process the transactions. Denari uses a third-party company called FrontStream. Denari simply passes the information through to them. They process the transaction and deposit the money to your bank account. It is also important to know that Denari does not store credit card or EFT information. The reason is that Denari is not PCI compliant. PCI is a security standard set by the credit card industry. FrontStream is compliant. They meet all of the standards and are audited on a regular basis. You may occasionally have donors who express concerns about the safety of their credit card or EFT information, and you can assure them that it is being stored in a PCI environment. Your account with FrontStream is managed by a third-party company called Practical Business Solutions. They are responsible to set up your account with FrontStream and to ensure that the money transacted is deposited to your bank account. So the first step in using credit cards and EFTs with Denari is to contact them. If you need the contact information, you can use the support button in Denari and they will give you that information. Once Practical has set up your account, they will send the account information to the Denari support staff. We will then in turn use that to connect Denari to FrontStream. At that point, you're ready to go. FrontStream has their own web portal called ArgoFire. When your account is connected to Denari, the staff will also create an account in ArgoFire. Their software will send you an email with the login information and an invitation to training class. For the most part, you will probably never need to log into ArgoFire, but it is available. It allows you to see the transactions from FrontStream's perspective. You can cancel or reverse transactions there if needed, view the transactions, and get more information about any errors that may have occurred. Denari provides most of that information, but again, ArgoFire lets you see what FrontStream is seeing. ArgoFire will also send you emails about failed transactions directly. Again, Denari provides that information, as we'll see in a few minutes, but it does provide you with an alert. As I mentioned before, Denari simply passes the information through to FrontStream, so you are really dealing with two separate companies. When you or a donor click to add credit card or EFT information to a gift or pledge, a little window will pop up. To look at that, I will go to a pledge, but the window is the same whether it is in online community, a gift record, or a pledge. I've already opened a pledge window, and we'll scroll to the bottom here to the credit card section, and you see we have an add edit link. I'll click that link to open the window, and I'll slide it down so you can see it here a little bit better. Now, this is actually a FrontStream window. When you enter the card or EFT information here and click Save, the information goes directly to them. They bundle the information into a single record there. In other words, the card number, the expiration date, and the name become a single record. They then send back a code that represents that record to Denari. From now on, anytime Denari uses that credit card or bank account for a transaction, it sends the code to FrontStream that they then match to their stored record to use for that transaction. That process reduces the number of times the card or bank information travels over the internet. You may have noticed the amount in this window says 1 cent. This can be somewhat confusing, and we have now developed a donation process for online community that hides this from donors, but FrontStream insists that it be present. When you click Save, FrontStream will authorize the card or bank account for 1 cent. This is a similar process used when you get gas, for example. Your card is authorized before the transaction takes place. FrontStream uses a 1 cent amount just to verify that the card is valid, and they insist that for PCI compliance, that amount must be made known to cardholders. Once the card or bank account has been authorized, Denari stores that code as a card on file for this donor, and you can then just choose that in the future for other gifts or pledges. Once the transactions have been made, your job is now to verify that the batch is accurate and then close the batch. Let's go to the Gifts tab and then Gift Batching. Here you see a variety of types of batches shown by the batch type column. When you see an online community gift batch or an automatic credit card or EFT batch, you know that you have some things to do. Let me stop here for a second to be sure everyone understands that an automatic batch is one that runs on a scheduled basis. It is set up in a pledge with a next transaction date. On that date, Denari runs the credit cards or EFTs set to run that day and creates the batch. You can get more specific information about that process in the videos on pledges. We'll click on an OLC batch here, but the process from this point is the same. First, notice that there is no amount in the control total field. The reason is that Denari creates a new batch with the first online community gift of the day. If there are other gifts through online community for that day, Denari puts them in the batch. So Denari doesn't know what the total of that batch will be. You can check the gift sum field and then put that amount in the control total field and hit save. That will cause the batch to balance. The same is true for an automatic batch. Denari doesn't know at the point that it creates the gift record which transactions will be successful and which will not, so it creates a batch with no control total. Your next responsibility is to click the Download Processor Results button at the top of the page. That downloads the latest information from FrontStream. It does not come to Denari automatically. Once you've done that, the Close Batch button will appear at the top of the page. Now here's where credit cards and EFTs differ. Credit cards run immediately, and you know immediately if the transactions are successful. That is not true with EFTs. They have to run through the banking process, and officially we're told that that could take up to 10 days. When you click to run the Download Processor Results, if it is a credit card batch, Denari will find out at that point which credit cards were not successful and remove them from the batch. At the same time, it will change the next transaction date in the pledge to move it ahead 2 days. It will then try the transaction again at that point. If it is unsuccessful, it will move it again ahead by 2 days. If it fails a third time, it will change the status of the pledge to failed and will no longer attempt the transaction until you change the status back to live. If the batch is an EFT batch, Denari does not remove the gift automatically. The reason is that 10-day period when you are waiting on the banking process. If you run the processor results report 2 days after the EFT has been sent off for processing, for example, some of the transactions may not have completed at that point, so we don't want to remove the gifts at that time. So Denari leaves it up to you to decide when the time is right. Once you're sure that an EFT transaction has failed, you can delete the gift record by opening the batch, selecting the gift record, and hitting the delete button. Now go to the pledge and change the next transaction date so that it will run again when you're ready. Near the middle of the batch page, you will find a number of reports. The first one to look at is the credit card processor report. Or if this is an EFT batch, it will say EFT processor report. This report shows you the information that has come back from FrontStream and will assist you in making a decision about which transactions have processed and which have not. And I've gone ahead and run one for you here. The approval column will show you which transactions were successful, and in the case of EFTs, which are still pending. There will be a section at the bottom that will show you which have failed if there are any that have failed. This report is only reading the information that has been downloaded when you hit the Download Processor Results button. If you've come back 2 days from now, you should hit the button again to download the latest information, and you may have to check again in a few days to see if EFTs have completed. Now, here's where ArgoFire can be important. As mentioned earlier, Denari is passing information to FrontStream, and your credit card and EFT transactions belong to them. Denari is a separate company from FrontStream and has no control over their activities. Your transactions are between you and them. Occasionally, when you run the Download Processor Results report, the information there is not completely up to date. Denari is only displaying what is available at that point. Your ArgoFire account is the final authority on what has transacted, what was successful, what failed, and what is pending. Most of the time, you can rely on the Denari report, but there are times when it's best to check with ArgoFire. If you don't have your ArgoFire login information, contact Denari Tech Support and we can set you up with an account there. Let's look at some of the other reports. The credit card batch results report is very similar to the processor results report, except that it shows the information in the batch from Denari's perspective. Usually the two reports are going to have the same information, although it is possible that one might be a little bit different from the other. Up above we have gifts not attempted by credit card or EFT. To understand this report, you have to understand the process, especially for automatic transactions, the ones driven by pledges. When that process starts, the first thing that Denari does is create a gift record for each transaction. At almost the same time, it sends the credit card or EFT information to FrontStream. Occasionally, the information never reaches FrontStream because of some glitch either in the process or in the internet connections. This report shows you if there are gifts in this batch like that. It lets you know that the gift did not transact, and again, you can double check your ArgoFire account to be sure. But the good news is this happens very, very rarely. The Pledge Credit Card Status Report shows you the pledges behind the transactions in the batch and provides some information like the change date, which is the date that Denari changed the next transaction date, so that that pledge will run again. But you can view that list to see the pledges and go to those pledge records and make any changes there if needed. The gifts deleted from this batch applies only to credit cards, as we discussed above. When you run the Download Processor Results report, Denari removes the failed transactions. This report shows you which ones were removed, and again you can go and look at those pledges and make any necessary changes there. If this is an automatic EFT batch, you'll find a section here called EFT Notices. This subject is discussed in more detail in the video on pledges, but here's the overview. To legally hit someone's bank account on an ongoing basis, you must either have written permission from the donor in your files or notify the donor that a transaction has occurred and give them an opportunity to stop future transactions. You can tell Denari if you have written permission in the pledge record. There's a place to set it up there. If you don't have written permission, Denari will send notification by email to those donors that have an email address in your data. If they don't have an email address, Denari will produce a printed document that you can print and put in the mail. This section provides a link to those statements. Both emailed and printed provide the legal language necessary and give the donor the ability to contact you and stop future transactions. Once you're satisfied that the batch is accurate and complete, you can close the batch just as you would any other batch to post the gifts to the donor's account. And again, in order to close this batch, you must have the control total filled in so that the batch balances and have hit the Download Processor Results button. Once those two things happen, the Close Batch button will appear. Occasionally, there's a need to reverse a credit card transaction, and that's easy to do through Denari. First, find the receipt number for the gift. You can do that by going to the donor's gift history page. Each gift record in Denari has a unique receipt number. Now, go to the Gifts tab and then gift reversal. Enter the receipt number for the gift. Denari is going to create a special batch for this reversal. If you leave the date field blank, Denari will use today's date. And if you prefer another date for that batch, you can go ahead and enter the date there. At the top of the page, you have two options: No CC Reverse Gift and Reverse Gift. If you click Reverse Gift, Denari will create the reversal within Denari and reverse the credit card charge through ArgoFire. If you click No CC or Credit Card Reverse Gift, Denari will create the reversal in Denari, but not the credit card. In both cases, Denari will create a reversing transaction that will show in the donor's gift history page to provide a record of the change. This process will not work with EFTs. You can use it to reverse the gift record within Denari, but you cannot reverse the transaction in a donor's bank account through Denari. You can, however, do that through your ArgoFire account, another reason to be familiar with ArgoFire. This concludes this video on credit cards and EFTs. As always, if you have any questions, you can contact tech support through the support button at the top of the page.